Hey, welcome this evening. What is today? Monday. Today, Monday?
Monday the 14th.
Monday the 14th. Well, we want to welcome you all to the show. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure having you. My sister here, Shelby, and my brother there, Steve, is back there working all the control panels, hitting all the buttons on this big asshole airplane as it hurls through the air. I'm not sure we actually have a destination in mind tonight, do we? Oh, I forgot. I want to congratulate Katie the Hobo Hobbs, right?
Oh,
She got excellent news that came out about Arizona today, didn't she? Have you heard the news?
I haven't heard the news. Share with me,
Hey,
Brian.
hey, anybody in the room heard the news about Katie Hobbs today? Didn't the state of Arizona go from number 4 in job growth to 47?
Oh, yeah, but that wasn't today. That was last week.
Oh, that was last week. Where the hell have I been?
I don't know.
Down in the mountains.
I was just talking about that. Net jobs for the state of Arizona is 1,008 jobs.
Good job, Katie Hobbs. Arizona needs to get a real governor. And, we're going to try to make that happen. What year? 2026?
2026.
What year is this? It's 2025?
So in 2020, no, it was 2019.
Yeah.
Arizona was fourth in jobs, as
Right.
you had said, with 100,800 jobs created, and that pattern had been fairly consistent
Right.
under Republican leadership.
Right.
And once Katie Hobbs took office, I think we're just a few years into the term, we managed to diminish that to 1%.
1%.
1% of the job growth.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's got something to do with the fact that Arizona has 2 Democrats representing it in the U.S. Senate as well. These people. What is that? Ruben Gallegos, is that his name?
Right. Ruben
Yeah.
Gallegos and Mark Kelly.
Yeah. I saw Ruben Gallegos today calling, the price increase on tomatoes the Trump tomato tax, right? And he's saying, oh, my God, this is a direct assault on the American worker, right?
Well, he's wanting to be our president.
Right. Well, if he cared at all about the American worker, what he would do is he would get rid of the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution, right? The United States income tax.
Right.
What is Lincoln doing? Did he suddenly wake up and get spastic?
No,
Lincoln,
he's over here. He's on this side.
my little boy. What's that?
Oh my goodness. Well, so what do you think? We talked about the No Kings protests, right?
Right.
And the people that are protesting ICE
Uh-huh.
and all the stuff that's going on around America.
Right.
Have you heard about what's going on in Mexico right now?
Yeah. That's something that's actually been brewing though for quite a long time, because a lot of Americans have been going down to Mexico buying properties, houses, real estate, building houses, whatever the case may be. And, the net impact of that is, of course, to price Mexicans out of real property and to increase the cost of living for Mexicans, because as you increase that demand of Americans going down with gringo money, which is worth far more than the Mexican peso,
Right.
then prices rise, and that has a deleterious impact upon the Mexican community.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. I mean, they
Yeah.
can get property so much cheaper in
Right.
Mexico.
Right.
Many of them have American-based businesses, so
Uh-huh.
their revenue stream is much higher than the average Mexican citizen, right?
Yeah.
But I find it very ironic, some of the things that they're saying. For years, Americans were called racist
Right.
because they said, learn the language. If you're
Right.
going to live here, learn the language and pay taxes, right?
Mhm.
And now that's the mantra in Mexico. Americans, you need to leave. Right. Kill the gringos, speak English, speak Spanish,
Right.
respect our culture, and pay taxes.
Right.
So it's quite an irony when you really, really think
Well,
about it.
It's not just respect our culture; it's assimilate.
Right.
You assimilate to our to our culture, you assimilate to our form of government, to our our social civil society, right? You live the way we do, and that's it's interesting that the tables have sort of flipped in that regard, but you could kind of see it coming. I mean,
Well, it just goes to show that each of us, regardless of what country you come from, we have an inherent desire to protect our nation, to protect our livelihood,
right,
to protect our schools, to protect our jobs, right? And so what we're seeing now is Mexico feeling the impact of mass immigration into its country. And it's not just Americans, right? There's people immigrating to Mexico from all over the world,
right,
similar
hopes
to
of trying to
America.
get into the United States,
right?
Same thing happened. I've been through all Central America, and the same thing really happened a lot. Panama was very heavily Americanized. Costa Rica has become very heavily Americanized. You got all the American tourism down there, and it's those two countries in Central America. If you're going to go visit Central America, don't go to Costa Rica or Panama. It's a hell of a lot more expensive, right? When you take your U.S. dollar down there, it doesn't buy you anything more than it buys you here. But if you go to El Salvador, which is a very safe country right now because their president, or if you go to Honduras, your dollar will stretch a long way, a lot further than it will in Mexico.
And it's quite a beautiful country, isn't it?
Beautiful country. Yeah.
Well, we've got a video to play for people about these protests that are occurring in Mexico. Should we go ahead and cue that up? Can you play video 1 for me, Steve, please?
Understand why Mexicans would be mad if Americans are moving inside of these zones and gentrifying the areas, especially if the minimum wage around Mexico is only around $350 and the rent is upwards of $500 or even $1,000. So I totally understand why Mexicans are angry at Americans for being inside of Mexico City, especially if it's making it nearly impossible for them to afford rent in areas where they want to live. Now, it is funny because here in the United States, we did have protesters protesting against ICE deporting people back to Mexico. Meanwhile, we have Americans inside of Mexico leaving America to live inside of Mexico, and now the Mexicans inside of Mexico do not want them anymore. In fact, they're actually spray painting things like "Kill the Gringo." I also want to remind you guys what happened here in the United States when the United States started deporting a lot of these people from Mexico in a place like Los Angeles. I was personally attacked by a Mexican at one of these protests, and this was when he attacked me.
This guy's a little fucking bitch. No, this guy's a fucking... He's a fucking white nationalist. This guy. You're a little fucking bitch.
Don't touch the camera.
Fucking bitch. I know that.
Hey.
You're fucking... This is our fucking land, you fucking bitch. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Dude, I have every right to be here.
I don't give a fuck. Not today. I'm the fucking police. I'm telling you not to be here, motherfucker.
Well, I want to be here.
Well, I'm fucking telling you not to be here. Get the fuck
Get out of my way.
Towards the cops, you fucking...
Get out of here.
Little fucking asshole. I know you are, you fucking right-wing motherfucker. You're a little fucking bitch.
And it is a little interesting that people in Mexico protested American migrants being inside of their country. Meanwhile, they protested here in the United States with signs like "Immigrants Make America Great." And on the contrary, in Mexico, they had signs like "Pay taxes, learn Spanish, respect my culture." It's a little weird how they don't like it when Americans move into their country, but they have no problem with them moving into our country here in the United States. And now let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. This is Nick, and I will see you guys next video.
I like that. A lot of the signs were in Spanish, right? Learn our language, and they do their signs in Spanish. I mean in English.
In English.
Learn our language, and they've got,
Well, they want to make sure that the gringos understand they're talking about them, so they got to put it in English.
I love Mexico. It's a beautiful country.
Yeah.
I mean, it is as diverse as the United States. You go down to south by Oaxaca, you got all of these huge what do they make tequila out of? The
agave plant.
The agave plant. Just the huge agave farm. Just row after row after row after agave. But you get into some of the most beautiful deserts that are a lot like the southwestern portion of the United States, and then you go over to the coast and you get into the tropics and whatnot. But it's a fabulous country. It's you got a lot of beautiful people down there. I've spent a lot of time in Puebla, Mexico, and pondered going down there to teach one day. And beautiful. You got this volcano that's constantly smoking outside of town. It's kind of ominous, but it's a fantastic country. Here if you I keep getting chastised from my microphone being in the wrong place. But I'm getting ready to throw my shoe. Damn it! But anyway, they're wonderful people.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with Mexico or Mexicans. I like to go down there.
Well, and it's like Nick said in the video, right? I mean, we can understand
no doubt
why the Mexican people are getting upset because their wages are not increasing.
No,
but they're being pushed out of home.
Right.
And inflation is as such where they're not able to afford it anymore because of the American money. But the irony of it is some of the same complaints are things that Americans complain about, and we're called racist, right? We can't afford the healthcare system. The housing market is horrible. People can't find houses, right? There's no starter homes for young families. And a lot of this is due to mass illegal immigration.
Right.
So it's just interesting to me. And I think about how each nation should have the right to preserve its borders and to control immigration.
Well, that's what a nation does.
Right.
Right. That's why it becomes a nation in the first place. Once it's no longer a nation, it protecting its own borders, then it's no longer exists as a nation. And so, I mean, that happened sort of in the United States in the run up to the Civil War, right? We had the southern states, we had the northern states, we had this fracture. And so when you can no longer defend your territorial sovereignty from those from other countries, from foreigners, however you want them to come in, then you're not a nation.
Right.
Right. And these are the global policies that they were pushing down our throat. But, there are a lot of, at least in the United States, there are a lot of good reasons, rationales for allowing, some amount of illegal immigration. For example, it's my understanding that illegal immigrants will come here for about 10 years and then return home. And so,
well, but that's work visas and stuff. That's not actually illegal immigration.
That's a lot of the illegals, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they come here originally legally, and then they overstay their visas, right? So we don't have that cycle that we should have as a nation where we can control what's there.
Well, I mean, typically the illegals would come over here for 10 years. They make such a high wage, they send a lot of it home, and that they save enough. And this is what is causing the problem with the Americans going to Mexico right now, is that when they repatriate, they typically self-repatriate.
Right.
And they take their money with them. But the gringos have been going down to Mexico in such large volumes over the last 2-3 decades that when they go back now, the money that they were saving to open a business or to do whatever they had intended to do when they returned to Mexico, they can't afford it.
Right.
Right. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah, because the inflation it causes in Mexico. So yeah.
Mexican people, we absolutely support your right to close your borders and to control immigration. And we ask the same for Mexico. Respect our right to close our borders and control immigration, because every nation has to control those borders for one reason or another. And it may be different. Our rationale is different here than it is there, but ultimately it's about preserving a future for our nation, for our kids, for our country, right? So on a different note, Brian,
did we congratulate Katie Hobbs? Yeah, Katie Hobbs.
Good job. You created 1,000 jobs this year. We're so proud of you.
I might do that periodically. Just reach out and say thank you, Katie.
We should have got some of those party favors, so we could do zingers for her every now and again.
We got any confetti? Time. Steve, you got some confetti? No.
How about poppers? No poppers?
No poppers.
Okay. No, nothing on hand.
I was going to suggest something, but we're in an urban environment, so we can't do that.
So, back to elections, right? 'Cause that's normally what we like to talk about. There was a big controversy a while back about how much control Dominion actually had over our election system. Were they just a mere contractor, or are they more embedded in our election system, our election process, similar to Runback.
Right.
Because I think we agree, and most people who watch this podcast agree, Runback is more than a contractor.
Oh, far more than a contractor.
So, but is Dominion, right? That's kind of an age-old question. Do they just hold the key to the tabulators, or are they very embedded? Well, we stumbled across something interesting. It's a video of a Zoom call with Adrian Fontes. And Adrian Fontes talks about how embedded Dominion is in Maricopa County.
Right.
I think we should play that for the people to understand the scope of what Dominion does in Maricopa County. Steve, can you play 15 for me, please? I know it's a bit out of order. But this is Adrian Fontes when questioned about what he thought of these lawsuits that Dominion was lodging against conservative people like Rudy Giuliani, Mike Lindell. I think Fox News was another one that was brought up. And this is him responding to that.
How do you feel about the Dominion lawsuits brought against Rudy Giuliani, Fox News, Mike Lindell, etc.? Do you think there will be more? And will they be successful?
I'm rooting for Dominion. I am rooting for Dominion Election Services because guess who was one of the biggest customers Dominion ever had? Helen Purcell. Maricopa County has been a Dominion county for a long, long time. And in 1996, Helen Purcell entered into the biggest contract that Dominion had had. And it grew into such a big contract that Dominion had offices inside the ballot tabulation center and 2 full-time employees who worked out of the county facility all the time, 365 days a year. That was that's how big of a customer Maricopa County has been to Dominion Election Services for decades. So don't give me any garbage about Hugo Chavez and, I don't know, Korean submarines or whatever nonsense that they're coming up with. Dominion is a great company and they're impeccable reputation. And the fact that they're filing these lawsuits has really shut a lot of people up, except for Kelly Ward. And I hope they win. I hope they win, and I hope they collect every single dollar. And I hope Rudy Giuliani ends up on his butt out in the street somewhere, because he deserves nothing less.
Huh. Interesting.
So Helen Purcell signed the first contract with the Dominion Corporation in 1996. Is that correct?
Well, that's what he's saying, yeah.
Right. And he also said that there were 2 full-time employees in the elections department from Dominion 365 days of the year.
Right.
365 full office dedicated to Dominion. So I think the question's answered, right? Would you do that with a normal contractor, Brian? Or
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. Does competitive bidding even exist for the election department? And we're going to talk about that a little later with a new entity that the Board of Supervisors has retained. But, is it possible for anybody now to actually competitively bid against Dominion when they're completely embedded into the system, right?
Right. Well, and that is the question, right? In some ways, these contractors kind of corner the market in a monopoly sort of way. And they also develop these relationships with the government departments that I believe when you get into situations such as auditing or fairness of representation, I would say it's not possible with some of these agencies just because of how entangled they are.
I agree 100%. But Runback is probably an excellent example, just like Dominion, right? If Maricopa County wanted to get rid of Runback, they wouldn't be able to have elections in 2026. Right, something seriously drastic would have to happen for Maricopa County to be able to hold good elections in 2026. Whether they're going to hold good elections in 2026 is still up in the air, but it would be very difficult. So Maricopa County has basically backed itself into a corner where it is now a dependent, right? Maricopa County is very, very, very exceptionally heavily dependent on Runback
And Dominion.
right? And so that's another huge part of this problem, is that when you become dependent on some private contractor to perform, arguably the most important function our government performs on our behalf is the staging of elections, right? And that's why, I think that people need to be reinvited back into the process. We need to get rid of all these corporate monoliths that have taken over our elections and go back to what everybody else in the world does. Right?
Hand counts?
Hand counts in some form of very localized precinct voting. Right?
Absolutely.
And yeah.
And you know what else is interesting, and I don't think we can point this out enough, is in order for counties or states who contract Dominion, they have to contract with a Dominion contracted printing company.
Yes.
And Runback and Dominion are tied at the hip.
Yeah.
Right. So Runback is Dominion's preferred vendor.
Right.
And Dominion is Runback's preferred vendor.
Right.
Even though Runback they do printing for ES&S, Hardin or Civic, and other companies.
Right.
Dominion pretty much exclusively operates with Dominion. So any counties that are using Dominion also get Runback as an added bonus, which keeps this kind of monopoly and corporate control of elections in most of the swing states.
And we've already found out that, we're not entitled to get records from these private corporations when they play a hugely significant role in the running of elections in the state of Arizona and other states. Every swing county, I think, every swing state.
Right.
And so, it's a good way for the government to pass off election-related functions to a company that you can't get records from. Right.
And then you have plausible deniability too, right? So if anything goes wrong later, they can say, "Well, that was our contractor."
Right. Well, and that's it's a lot like what happened with the CIA in the 70s. They got into trouble, right? And they got their asses spanked for doing stuff they weren't supposed to do. And what did they do? They learned from that. So they hijacked USAID, and they started doing all of their work through private corporations, private non-governmental organizations.
And private contracting agencies
as well as freelance private contractors, right? And so I was listening to a show with Mike Benz, and Mike Benz, you know who he is?
Yes.
Yeah, he used to work for the Trump administration in the Department of State, and he's done a huge deep dive into the CIA and all of these issues surrounding the 2016-2020 elections. And did you know Jeffrey Epstein was part of Iran-Contra as a private contractor?
Well, I learned that from you.
Yeah.
Right? So
he'd been around for a while as a CIA, a private citizen doing business for the CIA that the CIA couldn't do on its own.
Including, I don't know what, maybe entrapping politicians and world leaders and sex trafficking rings, things like that. But
so I don't know how deep you want to get into, Jeffrey Epstein or not, but
well.
An interesting subject.
It is. It's a very interesting and very contentious subject right now. I know a lot of people are up in arms about it because we've got President Trump in office, whom I think the majority of Americans really trust.
Right.
And then we've got his administration saying there's nothing in the files. And I think it's kind of spinning people's head a little bit because they trust Trump and they know whatever he's saying is probably in the best interest of the people. I know we believe that, right? But then people know inherently there's something wrong with Epstein because even above and beyond the files and the information that occurred under the Biden administration, there's a long history with Epstein, right? Like including being entangled with the Abercrombie and Finch sexual harassment stuff.
Yep.
And then, like you said, the CIA. So Epstein has a long history of being entangled in this stuff. And so I think the people are just wanting more because they know there's stuff on Epstein, but they don't really know how to process all this.
You know, what was it? Right. Yeah. It's interesting that what sorry, Steve.
I think O'Brien is broken.
Brian broke. I wasn't sure if you were talking to me, Steve, or if you were talking to Shelby. But anyway, what was that? The airline the CIA used. That was also provided by who? Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, Jeffrey Epstein goes back with CIA ties to the early 80s. And nobody really ever knows that, because who was it that took the fall for Iran-Contra? It was Ollie North, right? And so Jeffrey Epstein was there. He was one of the primary movers and shakers involved in the whole deal. But, with respect to the Epstein files, my wife and I had dinner with some close friends last night, and he does a podcast, and he was pretty irate about the files not being released. He was pretty irate about Bondi and what she was saying about the Epstein no list, none of that.
But it is possible they're not there now.
It's 100% entirely possible, but just to play devil's advocate and to sort of, we talked about three men a little bit on last week's show, right? Head of the FBI, what was his name? Comey. Right. Clapper, head of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency.
And Brennan, head
of the CIA. These people had those Epstein files.
Right.
And they are corrupt as fuck, right? They are 100% in the bag, part of what happened in 2020 with the 2020 elections. And so when you have people at that level of government that have control over these sensitive files, did they add anything? Did they detract anything? What did they do to those files while they gathered them and had possession of them?
Right. So to say under this administration that they're necessarily concealing or hiding something, that could have occurred well before this administration,
no doubt.
cover up.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep that in mind, and we have to look at the big picture here.
Yeah.
And but it's really interesting, and like you said, it comes down to the same three players who controlled the entire kind of national security apparatus, right? And they had access to all those classified documents.
Oh, they did. In fact, when Trump became president, his own FBI had to raid another FBI office just to get what files they had, right? And so, that's hugely problematic when you're talking about something as sensitive as, child sexual molestation. Who did they put it? Did they put people in those files that they wanted to destroy? Because, I think we talked about Dershowitz as an example, right?
Right.
And Dershowitz was lucky that this accuser came out and she said, he raped me here at that time, at that location, right?
Right.
Well, he was able to go back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I was at a conference here at that time. I couldn't have raped you. Here's my airline tickets. Here's my proof I was at the conference. So he was lucky in that regard that somebody came forward and made this specific allegation. But if there's somebody that's put into this file that had absolutely nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, and there are no specific date, time, location allegations, it's very much like what happened to what's that justice's name? Was it Roberts? Which justice was it that was accused of rape?
Oh, it starts with a K. I can't think of his name right now.
I can't remember.
But I know what you're talking about.
Right.
And years later, they came out and they
Right.
said, "Oh, now you're going to be a justice, so now I got to speak up about this." Right?
Right.
But there was no
Right.
credible evidence
Right.
that came out in the hearing other than a complete reputation destructor. So
Yeah, and so, I would caution all Trump supporters out there that are livid and furious about what's taking place with the Epstein files. I would caution you to not just passionately revolt, not just passionately, go out on the attack, because, a whole bunch of corrupt people put those files together.
Yep.
Right? People
Absolutely.
who overthrew the government of the United States of America and who sought to, I think, in part, use those files to destroy their political opposition. And that's why the Democrats are wanting it so bad. And my guess is Maxwell wants to testify before Congress so she can come out and start talking smack in the run-up to the 2026 election.
Well,
that's
and-
what
and
it's all
let's-
about, 100%.
let's think about it, Brian. I mean, this is a really good objective for them to
Right.
use something like this
Right.
to divide the America First movement.
Right.
Right. Because right now the movement is so strong. It's been shown in the popular vote,
Right.
what's happening across our nation. It's in their vested interest to create this kind of distrust and
Right.
division. And what better topic to do that over
Right.
than something
Yeah.
that most of us are highly emotional and for good reason. And that is, these child
Right.
pedophilia rings and this kind of sexual,
Mhm.
perversiveness
Right.
that's occurring. So,
Well, and this brings me back to, what does it bring me back to? It's been a long day already, and I just forgot what it brings me back to. But if you're a MAGA supporter, and I know what's going on here. Donald Trump was hugely successful at bringing new voters into the system, right? I know a lot of people who the first time they ever voted was for Donald Trump,
right.
because they were tired of the status quo. They were tired. Sorry about that. Lincoln, Halton, Den Moon. Lincoln, 9. But anyway, pet him or something, Chris. You set him off. But anyway, sorry, that was my puppers, Lincoln, and so all these new voters come in tired of the status quo, and so what they're trying to do, I think, in the run-up to the 2026 election, because this is purely 2026 politics. This is the only reason the Democrats now are coming out and calling for the release
right,
of the
because
Epstein
they weren't
files.
putting this kind of pressure on the Biden administration.
No, not at all. And the reason is, I think they were saving it for the Trump administration so that they could create division and sow, chaos and discord within the MAGA movement. And I think what they want to do is they want to push all those first-time voters into non-participation.
I would agree.
If you could convince all of these new voters that you've brought into the system that the guy that brought you into the system is no different than everybody else, then you're just going to they're just going to stay home on the couch.
Right. And
Right.
you're seeing that.
Right.
Oh, this is just the status quo. The
Right.
man that ran on anti-corruption isn't fighting the corruption. And I agree with you. I mean, I caution all America
Right.
First MAGA movement people to think about the implication of what they're trying to do here and, the long-term ramification. Because I believe that the information about Epstein is going to come out. The truth behind
Oh, I think so.
the Epstein situation, it is going to be brought to light. And I don't think anybody is saying Epstein was an innocent man that was framed either. I just think the list isn't what they thought it was, and whether that list was at one point there and it was destroyed by a previous administration, we have no idea. But I think we need to reserve judgment and wait.
Right. Well, and if anybody out there has any doubt that these people are willing to make stuff up and fabricate evidence, I mean, look at Liz Cheney and her partner on that one anti-Trump House committee. right, that sought to impeach Donald Trump. What's the guy's name? He's in the Senate now. He's got big bug eyes. He used to be in the House. He used to be on that committee with Liz Cheney. God, what the hell is his name?
I can't think of it.
I can't think of his name either.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's almost become irrelevant, I think, since he went to the Senate.
Yeah, I think so too.
But you know, they fabricated evidence, and then when the committee failed in its ultimate mission, they destroyed all the evidence they fabricated.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's a huge problem, and so. Be wary. Now, one thing that will come out, I think, Maxwell, today was her last day to appeal, her final appeal.
Right.
Once her appeals are fully expended, complete, then, I know a lot of America First organizations have already done FOIAs for the entire case file, all the evidence that was used to convict.
Right.
Maxwell.
And it's going to come out. Eventually the truth comes out. So, speaking of the truth coming out and things occurring, taking this back to Maricopa County, they just hired a new auditor, right? Maricopa County Board of Supervisors stated that they were hiring an auditor. And that auditor is BerryDunn. But they're not really a new auditor, are they, Brian?
No, they've been around for a while, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
They do 2018?
They were commissioned to look at elections in 2018 under Adrian Fontes. They were also the ones brought in to look at the 2021 acquisition of the new Dominion tabulators. And whether there was a quid pro quo or a violation of law and acquisition. Right. So they've been around for a while. Steve, can you put up number 2 for me, please? So this is the statement by Maricopa County stating that they've decided to go with BerryDunn, and they are paying BerryDunn $400,000 for what they're calling an audit. But they've stated that they're not going to look at any prior elections, right? All they're going to do is review the systems that are currently in place.
The policies and procedures.
The policies and procedures that are in place in Maricopa County and see whether or not those need any kind of improvement or such, right?
Right.
So, but BerryDunn, again, they did the 2021 acquisition report. You can bring that down now, Steve, and go ahead and put up number 3. So number 3 is the BerryDunn Maricopa County procurement evaluation. So I know a lot of people were up in arms that there was no competitive RFPs done for the acquisition of Dominion. And so they did a review of the acquisition. And they came back and said, well, there was a few little things wrong, but nothing that impacted, nothing to see here, no problems. And that was pretty much their report. But they also did some things in 2018. So in 2018 in the primary, Adrian Fontes had a real issue with running the elections. And a lot of the poll centers didn't open on time. And the lines were really large. And so people were kind of up in arm. What's going to happen in the 2018 midterms? You can go ahead and pull that down. And so BerryDunn was contracted. This was one of their first election gigs. They had never been involved because they're accounting, financing, policy, procedure, and acquisition. But in 2018, Adrian Fontes decided to use this basically accounting firm to audit Maricopa County elections and give advice on how to improve Maricopa County elections. Now, one of the talking points that Maricopa County is using for BerryDunn is the fact that, well, they issued a report of improvement in 2018 and elections significantly improved after BerryDunn's review. Well, so I thought, well, maybe that's true. Right? It's possible. So I went looking for BerryDunn's 2018 election review.
And were you able to find it, Shelby?
They have scrubbed it off the Maricopa County website. Steve,
Kind
can
of,
you put up number 4?
kind of like,
There's a website, number 4. Can you pull that up for me? First website. So I went looking for it in preparation of this. And here's the website right here. Okay. And it talks about BerryDunn and how their report was shared with the recorder's office in real time over the past several weeks to allow sufficient time for recommendation. This was post 2018 primary. Steve, can you click on the link that says read this report, read the report? Yeah. Oh.
oh my God, that looks like the ABA's website for Susan Spalding videos.
Well, exactly. That's
right.
so I was shocked,
Right.
to be honest with you. I'm like, okay. So I went looking another direction.
Why would you be shocked?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't even know how I'm surprised by anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to go through a different avenue
Right.
to find it. So I went to some of the articles that
Mhm.
reporters had put out.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, most of the reporters also linked to the PDF by Maricopa County.
Right.
Steve, can you pull up the next website, website 2? So this is a different pathway. Oh, look at that.
Wow, it doesn't exist. Huh. You know what? We ought to do a public records request for that.
Well, I think we should, because I'm wondering what they're trying to hide
Right.
about that report in 2018.
We're sorry, but the subscriber that you're trying to reach is no longer available.
Well, and that's just it, right? And here's the thing.
Yeah.
BerryDunn is not an auditing firm.
No.
They're a consultation firm. They do
Mhm.
process and procedure review and procurement, contract
Right.
procurement review.
Right.
They are
Well-
not election auditors.
Right. But that's all they're doing. They're doing process and procedure review. So what their audit is the audit is I would say it's a placebo. It's a feel good, right? It's
a farce.
yeah.
Let's-
It's
yeah,
it's intended to restore some semblance of credibility to Maricopa County Elections Department, right? And so that's all it is. So all they're looking at are, these are the procedures and processes for this. So they'll go to the county and they'll say, well, do you follow this? And the county will say yes, and that's what they'll put in the report. Yeah, your procedures and processes are fine. Now, what they should have done was they should have retained a law firm that could look at their policies and procedures, because going back to Lake v. Hobbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole chain of custody issue, right? Chain of custody was very clearly spelled out in the elections procedures manual, and it required Maricopa County to either count all of the ballot envelopes received at polling places on election day, on every day, or to put them in secured sealed bins to which they could be counted when they got to Maricopa County Tabulation Center, right? And so that was very clear in the law. But when we got to what's his name's testimony, the guy who got demoted, and
Ray Valenzuela.
Right? Poor Valenzuela. I like Ray Valenzuela. I mean, he's always been willing to work with me. He's tried to hide some shit from me once before, but when we said, hey, yeah, you're hiding it, you got to give it up, he gave it up. And so
And he was like, yeah, you got me. Here you go.
And so it's like he testified, oh yeah, we have a different procedure, we have a different process for election day. Right. And so,
Which I'm pretty sure, by the way, violates federal U.S. codes.
well, yeah. And so they didn't make that public prior to the election, right? Had they made that new policy or procedure for election day mail ballot envelopes that were dropped off at vote centers, had they made that clear and then it violated the law, you would be allowed to file a pre-election lawsuit to make Maricopa County Elections Department cease and desist from following that specific policy, right?
Right.
And so if you don't challenge something and they state they're going to do it in advance of the election, too bad. Latches applies, right? You can no longer argue the issue because you knew before the election. You could have rectified the problem beforehand. You chose not to, and therefore, c'est la vie. Too bad.
Right.
They didn't make it public. And so that's the problem with this audit that Maricopa County is conducting. It looks at policies and procedures, but it doesn't look at what's happened in the past, how those policies and procedures have actually been implemented.
Right, or whether or not they've even been followed.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Here's the other interesting thing. Those people, myself being one of them, you being one of them, those people that are out there that have a distrust in our current election system and believes that our government is failing our election system, whether it be due to negligence or criminal action, doesn't matter. They're not trusting the government right now with their vote, right?
Not at all.
So why would they believe that we would trust one of the biggest global contractor firms, not only in the United States, but in foreign countries such as BerryDunn, to give us an honest assessment of what's happening in our elections department? I mean, seriously, especially one that was just sued last year for massive data breaches. Did you hear about that, Brian?
Yeah, and we talk a lot about Susan Spalding and CISA, right? We got this huge multinational. Is it a multinational corporation?
BerryDunn, yes. They do stuff in foreign nations.
And they get this massive data breach. They were sued, and they recently entered a settlement, if I'm understanding correctly. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So they were sued for compromising people's confidential PII, including social security numbers and date of birth. But these are the people that we're going to turn our election apparatus over to.
Maybe,
that's what I think is great.
Yeah, maybe we could let them go through our voter registration database.
I think that would be a great idea. Maybe we'd actually be able to get access to real data because they would get access. Somebody would hack it.
Somebody put it on the internet. And then we could go through it all, right? That's a good plan. Hey, Maricopa County, you should give some of these companies access to the voter registration database. Sorry about it. Yeah. Right.
Can you put up number 6, Steve? So this is the article about the data breach, right? So
1.1 million people.
Right.
Wow.
And this was full name, date of birth, social security numbers, addresses, contact information of 1.1 million people at a third-party vendor that they were contracted to work at.
Right.
So they were auditing the safety of the health system.
Right.
And at the same time, they compromised 1.1 million patients' identity. And you're right, they ended up settling, I think it was around August or September of last year for $7.25 million.
Wow. Oh, that's not very much money for each individual who was compromised, is it?
No, not at all.
Right. You know who made a bundle on that case? The lawyers.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the lawyers made a shit ton of money. And all these class actions lawsuits, right? They'll send you, we've won, we forced them to settle, so they'll send you a new toothbrush. And meanwhile, their bank account has grown by, $700 million or something.
Do you remember the big Bank of America lawsuit where every Bank of America customer got like $2.38?
Right. Well, and that's why I use the toothbrush as an example. Right?
I don't even think you can buy a toothbrush anymore
you
for
can
$2.38.
Right? It's like, you might as well send everybody a vibrator because they got screwed. Sorry about that. I don't know what overcame me. I'm tired.
Well, it probably cost people more to go cash the check than they actually
I know.
benefited.
$2.
I wonder how many people didn't cash the $2 check, which made the lawyers even more money.
I don't know. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had nice lobbies. Could we see the lobby again, Steve? No, I'm just kidding. Nice office space.
But we've been down this road before, right, Brian, with these audits, these Maricopa County sponsored audits.
Right.
They're going to hire somebody credible. They're going to hire somebody qualified.
Right.
And that person's going to tell you everything is good, nothing to see here in Maricopa County, right?
Yeah.
After the 2020 election, when the Senate pushed for a mass scale audit, Maricopa County said, well, we're going to hire ProV&V and SLI to audit our systems.
Right.
And these are going to be fully independent and accredited companies, right?
We have some emails on that, don't we?
We do have some emails on that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of an interesting story. Steve, can you put up number 7 for me? So after the 2020 election, ProV&V did an audit. And the audit was supposed to see whether or not there was any internet connectivity, any digital hampering in the election, any software discrepancies, all kinds of things, right? This was a pretty massive report, and it was a pretty hefty contract. Steve, go ahead and put up number 8 for me. Okay, this was their conclusion. Based on the results obtained during the field audit, ProV&V determines D-Suite 5.5B voting systems on all evaluated components is the voting system software and hardware certified for use in Maricopa County and are the same as the software and hardware used in the conduction of the November 2020 election. Well, that's already been disproven, right? I mean, Maricopa County themselves admitted that there was a software upgrade done, if I remember correctly. But second to that, you're right. We have some emails. And so this is an interesting story how we got these. When Cyber Ninja got sued by America Oversight, and they went after Doug Logan and said, well, you may be an independent contractor, but you're an exclusion. We're going to make sure you disclose all of your communications. We decided to submit public records requests to ProV&V and SLI. And we applied just enough pressure that ProV&V decided to comply, right? I think you negotiated that for us, right?
I don't recall.
But we were able, it's been a long time ago. But we were able to get ProV&V to give us communications between the elections department and Jack Cobb, who was the main guy and owner of ProV&V. And there was an interesting email chain. So they're saying that, yes, we confirmed that the equipment is operating 5.5B Dominion. But then there's this weird email exchange that includes Jack Cobb, Scott Jared, one of your favorite people from States United, right? Bodul. In this email talking about how they needed to get access to the trusted build to ensure that they were operating 5.5B software. And nobody knew where the trusted build software was housed. Not the county, not the Secretary of State, not even Dominion seemed to have information about how to get that trusted build. Steve, can you put up 9 for me, please? So I think this is one you can scroll, right, Steve? Can you scroll this? Okay, so up top, it's Scott Jared emailing Jack Cobb with ProV&V. You have a way that we can download the trusted build source code for the Democracy Suite 5.5B. Thank you, Scott. And then Dominion Voting System says, hi, Scott. You can get in touch with Jack Cobb at ProV&V he should be able to provide you with the build used for federal certification. Why is Dominion instructing the county to contact this independent contractor to get the source codes for the trusted build?
Well, not only an independent contractor, but an independent, what's the key word? Auditor.
Auditor.
Right.
The people that supposedly made the claims were colluding and working with Dominion the whole time. Steve, can you scroll down, please? So then Scott Jared sends another email. Hello, Cherie, Waldeep, and John. The AZSOS does not have a copy of the trusted build. Since the AZSOS does not have a copy, how do we get a copy to ensure it is installed on the equipment? Thank you, Scott. So this is the election director who has no idea where the trusted build's housed.
The ProV&V audit was of which election? 2020?
That was after the 2020 election.
Right. And so they're looking for the software after the 2020 election.
This is March of 21.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So who put the software in this system before?
Right.
Okay, and so then...
It's almost like, 2022, when they went in after they did their dog and pony show testing. What do they call that? What do they call that testing? I'm just too tired today.
LNA testing.
The LNA testing.
Yeah.
Right? They went in and they changed the software.
Right.
Right.
So it gets better, right? So the Secretary of State says, hi, Scott. I'm not sure I understand what you need. We don't have a copy of the software. We do have hash codes of the approved system software and the source codes that are held in an escrow account, but we have not been provided software to the counties. If it's easier to have a call, please let us know. So this was in response to an email to Bo Duell. Right. So go ahead and scroll down.
Yeah. It's easier to call. We don't want you to, our wonderful producer, Steve, wants to pass this message on. Please call instead of email. That means we don't want to talk about this in writing, because if somebody public records requests it and we have to produce it, they're going to put it on some podcast where they talk shit about it. Right?
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. So call me next time. Don't email.
So apparently they had a call.
Right.
Apparently, in between the last email and this email, Scott Jared talks to Bo Duell. And he says, you can go ahead and scroll down, Steve. So he says, hello, Bo. To follow up on our earlier conversation.
I'm going to cover my ass.
We will need the trusted build software for the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5B. We need it to install on the new election management workstation, server, adjudication station, and central count tabulator that is scheduled to be delivered by Dominion on Friday morning. Can you let me know who we need to coordinate with to obtain a copy of the software? Why is the county going to States United Bo Duell at Katie Hobbs' office asking for software that the county purchased?
Right. Well, and the thing is,
because they're Canon brand central count tabulators. Yeah.
Well, this is a specific reference to the new equipment that's being delivered.
Right.
So apparently the new equipment in terms of tabulators was the Canon. And so, if
you can pull that down, Steve.
If Maricopa County had this software to upload on its systems prior to the 2020 elections, why don't they still have it to upload on their new systems that are being brought into the tabulation center?
Right. And here's the other question that we have to ask.
Right.
Is why is Dominion, and I can't repeat this enough, why is Dominion referring Maricopa County to a independent EAC certification auditor to get their software?
Right.
There is something significantly wrong with that picture.
hugely wrong with that picture.
But let's go a step deeper.
Isn't it Dominion that provides the software?
It's Dominion software.
Right.
Right? So Dominion responds back to the elections department. Oh, I don't know. Why don't you contact Jack at ProV&V, see if he's got your software.
Right.
And then you got ProV&V saying, everything looks great. The Dominion systems are functioning as required and they're using the right software.
Right.
And then you got Jack saying, well, I don't know what the software is. Maybe you should talk to the Secretary of State.
And then you got Bo Duell saying, or Bo Duell's people saying, hey, yeah, we don't want to talk about this by email, so just call me. And then you got Scott Jarrett saying, yeah, just to confirm, I'm going to cover my ass. And I'm putting this in email.
So I'm just wondering, and we're going to get more into the weeds here, whether or not ProV&V is a good representation of the type of contracts that we set up in Maricopa County. Steve, can you put up number 10? So this is a text message exchange between Scott Jarrett and ProV&V. So this is an actual text message exchange. And this is Jack Cobb of ProV&V. He says, the problem is tomorrow will be worse, boarded. I landed at 10. So if you don't hear from me, I will see you at 8, right? This is all blah, 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 blah. But then it goes on to say, do you have a few minutes to talk? I'm in a meeting until 2:30 AZ time. Can I call then? I'm adding some info about ProV&V and SLI compliance in the PowerPoint deck that I'm presenting next week. When did ProV&V first become EAC certified? We were NIST accredited in 2012. We were EAC accredited in 2015, just FYI. We just got a contract to clean up and reinstall the software that was audited in Michigan by Allied Security Operation Group. The weather in Michigan probably won't be nice as it is when you were in Arizona. I am sure the accommodation will not be as nice either. Okay, this is where it gets good. What is going on with the Cyber Ninja audit? Is anyone observing them? Whoever made the call for Ryan Macias and Liz Howard to observe was a good call. Both are fair and know what they know. Ryan, being in California and the EAC, will make sure any anomalies are explained, and Liz knows elections. So this is a independent auditor giving Scott Jarrett a kudos for bringing in Ryan Macias and Liz Howard into the Cyber Ninja audit.
And Ryan Macias, for those of you that don't know, if you watch the Lake v. Hobbs trial, Ryan Macias was the expert brought in by Katie Hobbs and the other defendants, and he literally left the courtroom and went and testified somewhere else by video, and he was reading his testimony. Somebody was typing his testimony in for him. That's just the kind of scam artists these people are.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
but, this is to me just further evidence
that
they were predisposed.
Right.
Yeah. They had
a cozy relationship between the auditors and the people being audited.
Jack Cobb even says, ProV&V is willing to back up our work if respected for no charge.
Right.
So I think what he's saying is if the auditors come back and say something they said wasn't true, they'll come out in favor of the county and their report and not charge for it. Okay, you can go ahead and drop that, Steve.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was saying, what the county should have done was hired a law firm to perform the audit, because the advantage that a law firm has over, just these accountant type auditors is that we understand the law, right? We understand the statutes. We understand how to interpret statutes. We understand how to research case law so we can dig into these types of issues. But at the same time, we work with experts. We work with a lot of experts that could really, truly perform a significant and a meaningful audit of not just what the policies and procedures are, but an audit of how Maricopa County has complied with
Right.
those policies, and that's the dirt, right? That's where the rubber hits the road, the meat and potatoes, so to speak.
Right.
Is Maricopa County implementing the policies and procedures in a lawful manner? Right. And that is where the truly independent audit needs to come into being. And that's why I think, like, election challenges like that brought by Kerry Lake. That was, in a sense, an independent audit. You had experts from all over the country that we brought in to look at Maricopa County election processes. At least the data we could get our hands on in the very, very short window of time that we had to bring this election challenge, right?
Right.
And so you're taking as much information as you can get, which is very limited because of the time frame, and you're working with experts who analyze the law, and they give their report. And if you look at what Maricopa County has been doing, it has not been implementing the law
Right.
in the state of Arizona. And the reason for that is I think one of the big reasons for that is they can't. Right?
Because it's a system designed to fail.
It's a system designed to fail.
Right.
Right.
You can't create a system and put policies in place
Right.
with no
Uh-huh.
apparatus to actually comply with that system.
Right.
But they never have any intention of complying.
Right.
I don't think. I
Right.
think they built the system to look good on paper,
Uh-huh.
knowing that there's no way that they would ever follow
Right.
through with the policies and procedures that
Right.
they have in place.
And so here's the problem. Was the system built specifically to cheat? That is the ultimate question.
Right.
Was it built to either make it easier for voters to vote, or was it built to make it easier to cheat? Because the system now is so easy to cheat. I mean, you get how many ballots in affidavit envelopes did they receive on election day in 2022, 2024? It's a significant amount.
Well, there were over 1 million extra ballots mailed out in 2024.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I think there was like 2 point some
Mhm.
million on the ABLE system, and don't quote these numbers,
Mm-hmm.
but then there was like 3 point some million
Right.
mailed out because there were a lot of duplicates mailed out.
Right. Well, and that's the first part then of the making it easy to cheat, right? You flood the system with all these ballots. And the same thing happened. I haven't seen, and I've been told I'm wrong, but I haven't had anybody prove to me I am wrong. But in 2020, based on Maricopa County's own data, they mailed out twice as many ballots as they had able voters, right?
Right.
Twice as many. That's just completely flooding the system. And then on election day, when you get all these people dropping them off in drop boxes at vote centers or whatever, you have, hundreds of thousands of ballots being dropped off that then you got to count, and you've got to signature verify
Right.
so that you can get tabulated as quickly as possible if you want to get accurate results to the public. Makes it impossible to do all of that, ethically and honestly.
Again,
so
a
it's a
system
system
designed to fail.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So.
So just one more thing. During the time of this ProV&V audit
Mhm.
was when the Senate had decided they were going to use Cyber Ninja,
Right.
and they were looking at ways to expand the audit and
Mhm.
ways to do things differently.
Right.
And so Corey Langhofer, who was the attorney at the time for the Arizona Senate, he actually emails Jack Cobb
Right.
to question him about what it would cost to expand the audit that Maricopa County had hired them to do and look at some other areas of the election.
Right.
Steve, can you put up number 11? So this is an email from Corey Langhofer at Statecraft PLLC. He was acting on behalf of his client, who was the Arizona State Senate. And he says, as you know, the Arizona Senate is interested in auditing the 2020 general election results in Maricopa County. We understand that your firm has been retained to conduct an audit for the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and we've been asked to speak with you about potentially engaging your firm for an audit with an expanded scope. Do you have a moment to talk later? So this is an independent contractor. Maricopa County hires them and says, okay, you're going to look at A, B, and C.
Right.
And then the Arizona Senate, who is an extension of that same election apparatus,
Right.
says, okay, Jack, we want to hire you to do, they hired you to do ABC. While you're doing it, what would it cost for you to do D through Z?
Right.
If we want to pay you more to advance this audit. Jack's response to that was to text Scott Jared. Steve, can you put up number 12?
Well, that would have been totally independent.
Oh, so independent. He says, Corey Langhofer contacted me by email and wants to talk to us about expanding the scope of the audit. I don't know if I should talk to him. Safely in bed. We'll see you by 8:30 in the morning.
Dreaming of you, wink, wink. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, this gets more interesting to this email. I wanted to point out the fact that his response to an email from the Arizona Senate was to tell Scott, should we talk to this guy? Like, I don't think I should talk to him, right? But if you go down a little further, he said, I'm requesting a meeting with you and Ray only before we start tomorrow to go over our proposal. It involves you, SLI, Dominion, and us. Before we go down this path, I want to talk to you guys to see if it is possible. Let's meet first thing in the morning. So then we're going to skip down a little bit, and he says, we can turn it off. Turn it on and turn it off. In my opinion, with your policies, you should get Dominion to turn it on in the next version. I'll forward to Michael Moore. I think it's open at 10 a.m. Okay, we can have a discussion early and see what to do. I have talked with engineering at Dominion and the EAC to get their opinion, and we all agree that running an election in that mode would not be a certified system because it has not been tested. But auditing in that mode and turning it off verifiably would be accepted. So we're going to turn off components of the system for the audit,
right?
Even though if we ran it that way, it wouldn't be EAC certified. But that's how we're going to test it. And then he goes on to say, I would need to get AZSOS buy-in as well.
Oh, you mean Odoo?
Yeah, so he's literally colluding with Dominion.
Yeah.
He's having conversations with the EAC about how they can bypass certain systems during the audit, even though bypassing those systems would delegitimize the equipment.
It would delegitimize an election.
Exactly.
Right. So we want to audit the system that if you ran an election the way we're going to audit the system, your election would be invalid.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, there's a whole host of shit going on in Maricopa County. There has been for a long time. Right. The audit by this accounting firm is nothing more than feel good. Right. They want to send the message loud and clear to as many voters as they can reach that, you know, Maricopa County elections are fine. That's the entire point of it.
It's also a way they can maintain their campaign promises.
Right.
Because 3 of these board of supervisors that got elected ran on honest, open, transparent elections. That was going to be their number one priority when they got elected. So they got to give the people something.
Right.
So this is the smoke and mirrors that they're going to feed the people.
100%. Smoke and mirrors.
Speaking of smoke and mirrors, how's your buddy Suzanne Spalding doing lately?
You know, that's a good question. I think we've got and sort of we're going to have a shorter show tonight, right? We're getting ready to wind up.
Yeah.
And you know, we just had this big holiday, and so we're all tired. Did we have a holiday? No, we didn't have a holiday.
No, that's why we're tired.
I had
Brian.
a holiday, by God. We were coming back from Crown King, and I was driving the dirt roads. I always watch for dust coming up, and that's how somebody's coming in your direction.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Just on a side note, Crown King is one of my absolute favorite places.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
When you're driving through that ugly desert and you go up through like Cleator and all those places, it's just absolutely horribly ugly.
Cleator's funny.
Yeah, it's just
Cleator's
a funny word.
Cleator.
Cleator.
They have Cleator actually has a yacht club. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they have a yacht club. And so if you go, it's actually just
there is no way.
No, I swear to God, they've got a yacht club. It's actually just a dive bar in the desert.
Oh, okay.
Right, and they've got a yacht out by the bar, and they've got a whole bunch of watercraft in the back. None of them float because there ain't no water there. And so, but it's pretty cool. They got a yacht club. I like Cleator. It's got character. And then you have that one house on the right. It looks like they raided, like every salvage yard from here to Mississippi, and they bought all the stuff they put in their yard, right? But it's cool. But Crown King's nice. Yeah, but we were coming back, and some idiot hit us.
Yeah.
And so it I had to deal with the insurance today, so they always wear me out.
Well, and it's a rough drive. It really is. It's.
Yeah, but speaking of Susan Spalding, Steve, we have a little video compilation because if you recall our last show, right, we were talking about Susan Spalding and her massive con job.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if Kash Patel, while you're supposedly conducting this big investigation of the national security state, and those people responsible for 2020, if you don't include Susan Spalding, the ABA, and a lot of the people she worked with there, then you're barking up the wrong tree, buddy. And so somebody was watching our show, and I can't remember what his Twitter handle was. Something researcher. I don't know. I'll look on my phone real quick, but. He was paying attention when we pulled up the Susan Spalding links and with the ABA, and they actually wouldn't pull up because they're kind of like Maricopa County, and they
scrubbed it,
scrub stuff from the system. And so I'm gonna look at what he sent me.
Do you want Steve to go ahead and play that video while you look?
You could hold on. I think nope, that's not it. That's not it either. Oh, okay. @listen_to learn. The letter to learn.
Okay.
And somebody called the researcher. And so he started posting a bunch. Apparently he downloaded them all. Right?
Good.
And so he started posting Susan Spalding videos. And so Steve, I made a little compilation here of one of Susan Spalding. Now this, you got to bear in mind, this is what we call CLE, right, in the legal business. And CLE, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's continuing legal education, right? As lawyers, we are ethically obligated to take a certain number of continuing legal education credits every year to maintain our law licenses, right? And so, of course, we have to pay for these. But this is Susan Spalding giving in a part of a CLE, on saving democracy, right? And she's talking about our courts and the judicial system of government, the judicial branch. And so this is literally attorneys getting credit listening to
her spew lies
to the big con.
Yeah.
So let's roll that number 13, please.
I think remiss if I didn't thank John Hamry as the director, who's been a huge supporter of these projects, even though he isn't a lawyer. I think he deeply understands the role of our courts in defending our democratic institutions. So with that, Suzanne, I give you the parole to give us your presentation.
Thank you very much, Harvey, and thanks for those very appropriate words about Dr. John Hamry, the president and CEO of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and a a very strong supporter of this project, but more importantly, someone who has dedicated his life to defending our democracy in all the ways it needs to be defended. And I want to thank you too, Harvey, and the Standing Committee on Law and National Security for your collaboration and partnership in this project from the very beginning. Your guidance and that of Elizabeth Rinskoff Parker and Holly McMahon and others on the committee has really been an important part of the development of our project. And I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak to the members of the American Bar Association about this threat to our courts and our justice system through disinformation and information operations designed to undermine public trust and confidence in our courts. And I spent 3 years collecting the evidence of this, and it's presented in the Beyond the Ballot report at csis.org, but I want to walk through very quickly some of the highlights here. And as I do, I want to make some initial points right up front. The work that we did is really focused on Russian information operations. Russia is really the country that is most aggressively involved in information operations that are trying to undermine our democracy and weaken us and undermine our trust in our institutions, including the justice system.
With respect to our foreign adversary, particularly Russia, again, what we see is far less development of false information than promotion and amplification of disinformation that originates with Americans.
So this activity or an interest of mine really stemmed from the work that I did.
So this is Susan Spalding. The first video that aired of her. She's basically talking about Russian disinformation and how Russia is, engaged in all these disinformation tactics and mis and mal, whatever information, and trying to hijack our courts. And this is really about our elections, right? She's saying they want to interfere in our elections. And so this is a list. So then I spliced in another video of Susan Spalding actually having a conversation with a Mesa judge here in Arizona online, right? They were doing this Zoom call.
Right. This is when he asked her if it's a bunch of Russians in the basement in their underwear, tweeting stuff.
Right. But she admits in that little short clip, it's not really the Russians. It's we filthy, dirty Americans that are creating this speech that she doesn't like, that her and her friends in the ABA are targeting, right? Now let's look at these three things up here. Activities in the 2016 election by the Russians, propaganda, right? We showed last week the articles talking about the Russians going to be dissing Joe Biden about his health, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Biden, they're going to be saying he's got bad mental health, he can't be president, blah, blah, blah. And it's all Russian disinformation, right? He could run a marathon. And so nothing wrong with Joe Biden.
Right.
And so all of this speech they were seeking to censor, that they did in fact censor, and all of the propaganda that was coming out wasn't Russian propaganda. It was all propaganda being put out by Susan Spalding and the National Security State.
Now, let me ask you a question. I know there's a legal term for this, Brian, but when you put out all this information into the sphere, especially to lawyers and judges, particularly to judges ahead of time, with the understanding that there could be potential future litigation, what is that called? It's you're like tainting something, right? You're tainting justice.
Yeah, normally it's tainting the jury pool. Right. And that's why, as a lawyer, if I've got a big case I'm going to take to trial, and I go out in the public and I make statements, right, and I'm inflaming the jury pool, right, the people in the community who will be called together to be that jury, or members of that community will sit on that jury. If I'm making statements that inflame the passions of those people that are going to be called in to be potential jurors, I can be sanctioned as an attorney for doing that. But that's exactly what they're doing here, right? They're going before our judges and they are tainting our jury pool. Because in an election challenge, you don't get a jury.
Right. The
You
judge
get a
is
judge.
it.
The
right?
judge is the jury, right? And so that's what's taking place here. They're tainting the jury pool with respect to free speech rights, right? They're tainting the jury pool with respect to several other things, including we're going to talk about the hack and leak of email, right? Whose emails were hacked and leaked?
The DNCs.
The DNCs were hacked and leaked internally, correct?
Absolutely. Look, William Benny and his team, William Benny, former NSA, they proved that there was no way that hack came from Russia.
Right.
And nobody has contradicted the investigation they did because the download speed was recorded in the metadata. And there was no way that these files could have traveled externally, especially to a foreign country. Right. It was a thumb drive in the DNC. It was an insider job.
Right. Seth Rich.
Yeah. And the question is, was the DNC in on it? Was this all part of the plan the whole time?
Right. Could have been. But Susan Spalding comes out and she educates our courts that it's the Russians. Now put that back up real quick, Steve. Okay. Also on the list that you can no longer see anymore is voter registration databases. So let's see what she has to say about voter registration.
As the Undersecretary at the Department of Homeland Security, responsible for critical infrastructure and cybersecurity, I spent much of 2016 working with my team, working with state and local election officials and our federal partners on trying to protect our election infrastructure. And these are some of
Brian, what does she mean when she says our federal partners? So she says government agencies, but then she also says federal partners. Help me understand and distinguish the difference between government agencies and federal partners.
Back it up a little bit and play it again.
State and local election officials and our federal partners on trying to protect our election infrastructure. And
federal partners, that could be a whole host of things, right? That could be, if she's working as Undersecretary of the National Security Agency, federal partners could be the FBI, right? Who we know was corrupt at the time. The leadership was corrupt at the time anyway. It could be the Central Intelligence Agency, right? It could be a lot of these NGOs, but the NGOs didn't really. They began to take off significantly internally in the United States prior to the 2016 election, and so they could be federal partners, the non-governmental organizations, right?
I just found it interesting because she's admitting how much these federal agencies actually meddle in our election system. And that in itself should really concern people.
Yeah, but when she says federal partners, she doesn't mean just federal government agencies.
Right.
Federal partner has more of a connotation. We were talking earlier about Jeffrey Epstein, right? And how the CIA began using these non-governmental organizations and individual contractors to do the work that the government could not do.
Right. So who are their federal partners,
Who
right?
are their federal partners, right? They're all these NGOs. So.
Okay, sorry, Steve. You can go ahead and put the video back on.
These are some of the things that we saw in 2016. As you know, we saw propaganda efforts. A lot of what's come out in terms of what we saw on social media around election interference. We saw the hack and leak of emails, so combining traditional malicious cyber activity and information operations. But even that, which appeared to be strictly traditional cyber activity, like the malicious activity around that attempts at hacking voter registration databases, we assessed to be actually part of the information operations.
With respect to our foreign adversary, particularly Russia, again, what we see is far less development of false information than promotion and amplification of disinformation that originates with Americans.
And that was, if you can imagine getting into those voter registration databases and altering that data, which is one of the things we worry about with malicious cyber activity. If you could get in and remove many names from the voter registration, if you could change the spelling of names or the addresses, you could cause chaos on election day when people showed up to vote.
With respect to our foreign adversary, particularly Russia, again, what we see is far less development of false information than promotion and amplification of disinformation that originates with Americans.
It's not the Russians, it's you filthy MAGA Americans, right? But I think it's very, very important people understand what she just said with respect to voter registration databases, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because somebody very close to Barack Obama in his administration, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton is one of the main ringleaders in what happened in the United States. And so, but this guy who was in the Obama administration, very close to Obama, left, and we've talked about him before. I mean, he went out and did a lot of foreign gigs, probably Central Intelligence Agency. But he created a non-governmental organization specifically to monitor our voter registration databases, right?
Right.
Well, what happened in Arizona in 2022?
With all of the people who were removed and their voter registrations were altered.
Everything she said was done in 2022 in the Maricopa County election. Everything she said.
But what's interesting is they won a lot of stuff in 2022, and it was crickets. I didn't hear any of them saying Russia hacked the voter registration system.
No.
I didn't hear Suzanne Spalding saying, "See, I told you so."
Right.
The Russians did it.
Right.
Because they know better. They know that's not what happened.
Right.
But it's interesting that she's admitting that these things can occur to our voter registration database, because we all know they do.
Right.
When they talk about altering names and altering data, this is how they create clone voters.
Right.
Right.
And this is but that's part of the problem, and that's why we want to educate people to what's taking place with these non-governmental organizations, because you know, the NGOs are hired specifically because they can engage in activities that the federal government can't.
Like Eric.
Right. And that's exactly why CISA works with outside non-governmental organizations. They're federal partners, right?
Yes.
To censor speech, right? So the Center for Internet Security was retained by CISA to write a software program for reporting disinformation, right? Russian disinformation. We got to remove this because it's not true. Right. And we've talked about this significantly, and I think we have brought the evidence to the table to show that Susan Spalding was a hack, that Susan Spalding was doing the bidding of the Democratic Party. My understanding that one of the things that Kash Patel is going to be looking at, and potentially an independent counsel brought in to look at, is what the Democratic Party has been doing for the last decade. Because this is the upper echelon leadership of the Democratic Party united with those Democrats in the national security state. Steve, can you bring up that last video?
But no, Brian, we can't discount the involvement of Republicans in this process either.
We can't.
So I want to make sure to point that out, that we have a lot of people in the Republican Party, people who are unaffiliated, right? So this isn't just fully partisan. This is more ideological than it is political.
Yeah, and this is a debate about the state over the individual.
Right.
And so when the founding fathers created the Constitution of the United States of America, you know, the debate at the time, and this is why we got the Bill of Rights, right, was, you know, there was no protection for the individual, and the Constitution alone would put the state above the individual. And so that's why they felt the Bill of Rights was so important, and that's why, you know, it was written and added to the United States Constitution, was to ensure the individual sovereignty. But what's taking place right now is a complete erosion of that Bill of Rights, as especially the First Amendment, and as they try to censor our speech, and so it's this classic debate, right? What's more important, the state or the individual?
Right. Or
And-
what I like to
right.
say, the institution or the
Right.
Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Individual rights and freedom and liberty of the individual, or propping up a failing institution,
Right.
or in your case, you say the state.
Right.
But it's the same concept.
And so, people, why do people believe people like Susan Spalding? Right? You have that last video ready to go up, Steve? I think it's 15. Go ahead and play it. This is why. And we'll talk about it a little after.
She's had a career dedicated to public service, like many other two individuals on the panel. Suzanne is currently the senior advisor for Homeland Security and director of the Defending the Democratic Institutions Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She has also been a recent member of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission, which has come out with a major report that is also part of our CLE aspects of this program. But most recently, she served as the Undersecretary for the Department of Homeland Security, where she led the National Protection and Programs Directorate, now called, which is an issue that she championed, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. And she's currently been involved in advising a range of both private sector and government policymakers. And also, like other individuals on the panel, also the work not only for the executive branch, but also for the Congress. She had a career where she was general counsel for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, what we know as SISI, and she was minority staff director for the House Representative Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which we know as HPSI. She's a former chair of our committee, the Senate Committee on Law and National Security. She's been a member of the American Bar Association's Cyber Security Legal Task Force, was one of the original founders. She also sits on a number of boards and is involved with everyone from Splunk to MITRE to Harvard University Defending Digital Democracy Project. You couldn't have a better person who's been involved in this space of understanding how to protect our cyber networks.
Right. There you go. So, he left a lot of things out, right?
Yes, he did.
She was an attorney for the Central Intelligence Agency.
Yes.
And I think it's also important to point out, when he mentioned that she was an attorney for the Senate Intelligence Committee, right? And then he mentioned she was an attorney for the minority House Intelligence Committee.
Yes.
Right? What he's saying there is very partisan, right? She wasn't a nonpartisan lawyer for the Senate or for the House.
She was a political appointee.
She was a political hack attorney for the Democrat-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee, and then for the minority Democrat in the House Intelligence Committee. Right, Democrat. She represents Democrats. She represents that wing, that Democrat wing of the national security state. And so she's also, served on multiple boards, right? She's all over the place. She's like ubiquitous. And so they were using the ABA to push all this stuff down into state bar associations. And I've talked about it before. We had, I watched one CLE where these two attorneys for the State Bar of Arizona were actually telling people to allow the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to probe their systems to make sure they were secure.
I wonder if BerryDunn lets CISA probe their systems.
Yeah, maybe they got hacked. Who knows? And so, but CISA gets hacked before every election, right?
Right.
And so, yeah. And so here comes Susan Spalding. Oh, these are all my credentials. I'm national security. I've been a lifelong, public servant, and we got to save democracy.
Right.
Right. She comes dressed in all of this clothing that says, I know this is happening. I can't tell you how, or I'd have to kill you. Right.
Well, and that's just it, right? The national intelligence.
Yes.
And we talk about that all the time, the national security apparatus, right? The average person, not even the average person, I mean, most people, they hear something like that. They're like, oh, they know things I don't know and I'll never understand. So we need to trust them. Right?
Trust
it's like
the expert, right?
We got a tip from a guy. And I can't tell you who the guy is because it's privileged information, but trust me.
Right.
And one day you'll understand.
And,
right?
so,
And everybody's like, oh, I'm used to that. That's okay.
Right. And so you had all of these big Democrat national security state elites that were working with Barack Obama, that were working with Hillary Clinton, that really attacked Donald Trump when he won the 2016 election, actually before, because they brought out this Steele dossier, right? And they
were still peddling even after it had been debunked, completely debunked.
100%, and that's part and parcel of what they were doing in these efforts to impeach Donald Trump following his election in 2016, and then going into the 2020 election. That's really when Susan Spalding and their crew dug their claws into our election. They drug out all these NGOs to get involved in our election processes. They worked very, very hard to push states to mail in ballots to create the very type of system we talked about earlier, the system designed to fail.
And not only that, create the pre-narrative to prepare people for results that are maybe shocking to them, right?
The Russians are going to try to undermine our democracy by saying, that Donald Trump really won and there was election fraud, right?
Exactly. And they predispose people to that.
Right.
So then when actual Americans came forward and said, something's not right, look what I saw at my polling center, this doesn't look right, can you look into it? No, you're just you're believing the Russian lies.
You're just stupid, right? But I mean, you saw Susan Spalding in her own words. It ain't really the Russians; it's just them dumb hick MAGA people.
But it all goes back to, as producer Steve said, it's very similar to under Dr. Fauci and the whole COVID thing. Trust the science,
right? It's funny. It's funny that Joe Biden did not approve. It's been confirmed, Dr. Fauci's pardon. And so that pardon, I'm going to say, is out the window. It doesn't count because some flunky underling working under Joe Biden has no constitutional authority to issue pardons to anyone.
Right.
And I hope that person goes to jail. And I hope they keep investigating and find out what happened with this auto pen and who was really governing the United States of America during the Biden era, I suppose.
It would be really interesting to find out. And I agree. I hope they trace this all the way down to its core and find out, because I think the American people need to know whoever was running that auto pen was running this country.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, I guess, closing remark. I just want to urge Americans, okay, do not get too disgusted. I mean, there are a lot of things I'm hearing that a lot of people are getting, very upset, very angry about. Some of the things Donald Trump has done. Donald Trump got the big, beautiful bill passed, right? But how do you do that in our system of government when you have to work with a diverse group of people that actually draft and write the law?
Nothing's perfect in government.
Nothing's
that's for
perfect
sure.
in government. It requires some compromise along the way, and so I've been critical of Donald Trump, cuddling up with Lindsey Graham, because I think Lindsey Graham's a snake. I think he's somebody that puts the state over the individual's sovereignty.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I oppose, right? Stephen Richer puts the state over the individual's sovereignty. They're two peas in a pod. I oppose that type of philosophical belief in government, because if the best interests of the state prevail over the best interests of the individual, they can determine us to be a cancer and remove us from society.
Absolutely.
If they deem it's in the best interest of the state, they can kill you. And it's justified because the whole is better without you, right? And so stay strong, people. Stay strong. Take heart that there are a lot of things happening, right? Israel, a lot of people don't like the fact that we bombed Iran. But what has the national security state done in the Middle East for the last 50 years, the last 60 years, the last 70 years? They've worked to create division. We have armed all sides to all conflicts. We've started most of the conflicts, right? Our national security, our CIA goes into the Middle East and creates havoc. And there's a huge spillover effect for Israel, right? And so I'm guessing that the political factions in Israel would like to see America get its national security state under control so that we're not creating all of these spillover conflicts in Israel. And so I would just urge people, there are a lot of things taking place that you don't see everything. We don't see everything. We don't know everything. We're not privy to everything. And so, some point we have to have faith that we are marching down the right path and we need to stay on that path. And so that's what I would just urge people. Stay on that path all the way through 2026 because we have to win those elections.
I absolutely agree. We've been talking about this facade that they build up. This smoke and mirrors, everything from the audits at the Board of Supervisors to Suzanne Spalding and her Russians in their underwear in the basement. It's smoke and mirrors. It's a facade. And we have to understand the media is not our friend.
Nope.
And what is happening in the intelligence agencies has historically not been our friend.
Right.
And so if things appear to be too good of a thing and there's too many people on the wrong side of the aisle supporting it, you have to ask yourself, is this another smoke and mirror? Right. And we have to be patient and we have to let this play out. We have to stay America first strong to get through this because 2026, we have to take back the administrative branches of government. We have to take back our election system. We need to win the Secretary of State races across this country, and we need these governor seats in order to preserve our liberty, and we need good people in there. And so the only one going to benefit from us fighting now are the leftists and the statists, and we can't let that happen.
And we need to increase our majority in the House and the Senate. That's imperative that happen.
And that's hard to do, right? Midterms, it's not historically something that can happen.
Very hard to do, but what they want you to do, if you're one of these people that Donald Trump has brought into our tent, if you're one of these people that Donald Trump is the reason you decided to go vote, that you decided to get involved in politics and exercise your right to the franchise, then make sure you keep exercising that right to the franchise, because what they want right now in the division they're trying to sow is intended to make you say, well, it doesn't matter.
They want you to stay home. Right. Yes, they want you to stay home.
And you can't stay. You stay home, they've won, and it's over.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So on that note, don't stay home. Get out, get involved, and
peace.